Thank you everyone for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We really appreciate you being here. We have two incredible representatives today from the Mount Kenya Trust. Longtime partner, Susie Weeks, who is the executive director of the Mount Kenya Trust. She was born and raised in Kenya, has experience managing a diverse portfolio of conservation programs, both in Kenya and Tanzania. But she's also joined by her colleague, Enock Ochieng, head of monitoring and patrol teams. We are very familiar with both of these people for a long time. IEF has funded them for over 10 years, and we are honored to speak with both of them today. I think you'll find their work as engaging and as important as we do. So thank you so much for joining us. A reminder, as they speak, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. They'll talk for a while, and then afterward, we'll come back and do some questions and answers. So throw your questions in the chat and we will get going. Susie, Enock, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We're actually celebrating 25 years of the Mount Kenya Trust this year. So it's a really poignant time to speak to people and especially welcome people who have been with us for some time, either supporters or friends of the Trust, but also any new faces who are not familiar with the beautiful area that we hail from. Maybe I'll just introduce myself very briefly, then Enock will, just before you start the presentation. Thank you so much for hosting us, Sarah and Deborah. We're most grateful. So you find us in a darkening Nanyuki. We're just going into evening time. So I'm Susie, and as Sarah said, I've been with the Trust for very many years, almost since its inception. First as the executive officer of a very small team, actually two, and here we are today as a team of 68 people, 79% of those who are in the field. Enock, tell us when you joined the Trust.
Yeah, so thank you so much. As Sarah said, my name is Enock Ochieng, and I'm the head of monitoring and patrols. And I joined Mount Kenya Trust in 2016, January of 2016, and I've been here working with the rangers, doing monitoring, doing patrols, and doing harmonization, just ensuring that Mount Kenya thrives to what it should be. Thank you.
Thanks. So you can move to the first slide. So for those of you familiar or even unfamiliar with the area, Mount Kenya is a very unique habitat of about 2,700 square kilometers, massive, absolutely vast space to try to conserve and protect. And a lot of problems and solutions that we've come up with to tackle that. It's an Afro-montane forest in terms of its key vegetation. And then as you go up to the top of the peaks, the vegetation changes quite rapidly with the altitude. Obviously, the threats are mainly forest logging, but there's also poaching, agricultural expansion, and charcoal production within the forest, and land encroachment. It's a very populous area. There are a lot of large towns surrounding the mountain, and there is quite extreme poverty in some cases. But this mountain and its sister mountains are major water catchments, which feed a lot of not just the regional area, but a lot of the rest of the country. So very vital in terms of water flow and ecosystem services. Next slide, please. So the Trust was formed as a result of a damning report that was produced in '99 about the level of destruction on the mountain. And the founding trustees felt that they had to assist the government agencies tasked with working to protect the mountain by setting up an NGO or a civil society organization. Beyond, as I've said before, beyond the ecological value and the habitat and major biodiversity on the mountain, we have a lot of ecosystem services that are important nationally for the country. We are home to 27 forest edge communities, and most people rely on subsistence agriculture, timber for construction, and there's a massive need, obviously, for fuel, for cooking, and for farming as well. Next slide. So we have recently spent quite a lot of time in workshops working on our next strategic plan, which we are really pleased to say that we will be releasing to our partners and donors and friends within the next month or so. And we've come up with a very simple but tough mission. Our vision is a healthy Mount Kenya ecosystem where communities, forests, and wildlife coexist harmoniously. And our mission to sustainably conserve the Mount Kenya forest ecosystem. Next slide. So we are in the central highlands of Kenya, and sort of one side of the eastern side of the Rift Valley. The mountain is made up of these different vegetation zones, the very dark green area being the forest reserve. And then as you climb higher towards the peaks of the mountain, you have bamboo zones, and then it grows into moorland zones as you go higher and higher up, and the vegetation gets smaller and sparser as you sort of aware from many different mountain type ecosystems. We're also attached to them, so that you've got the Mount Kenya Reserve, the Mount Kenya National Park, and there's also the Imenti Forest Reserve up there, that little tail that you see in the right-hand corner, or should I say the northeast of the country. So that's the area we work in. It's also a World Heritage Site. Very importantly, it's a World Heritage Site because of its ecosystem services, its ecology, and its biodiversity. It's home to several species of internationally critical wildlife species. Next slide. So we are going to focus today, because we're with IEF, we're going to focus today on a lot of what Enock's work, so a lot of what we do in terms of wildlife protection, elephant protection, because that's what the International Elephant Foundation assists us with. But we want to give you a little overview of all of other projects with the work in tandem with the rangers and with the Elephant Corridor projects, in order to show we have a holistic overview of what we're doing, and that we put communities at the very center of what we do. So we work very closely with the Kenya Forest Service and the local communities around the mountain, especially, but not solely, with forest restoration on the mountain. So prior to that 99 report that I mentioned earlier, it was very obvious that large tracts of forests were being ceremoniously destroyed, those governments in the 80s and 90s, with not much oversight. And it was clear that a lot needed to be done, not just protection, but restoring these vast forest areas. Our project model is one in which the communities benefit very much from the restoration projects, either as people who supply to us seedlings and who we help to supply us the seedlings, in that we help them build up their nurseries and give them training, but also the community forest association members are the people in the different areas that need restoring that we work with to restore the forest. So they do the actual planting, and they, in most models where we work, they are given plots to also grow crops alongside the trees, which means that there is a benefit to everybody and the trees are better protected. So it's an agroforestry model that we're very proud of and has been very successful. We have to date planted over 2 million trees on Mount Kenya. Next slide, please. When it comes to education, we work at very many different levels. Enock will go into how the communities are also sensitized and work directly alongside our rangers and field teams. But in schools, we have a model where we try to nurture, educate, equip schools for sustainability, and we're building a digital literacy platform which works alongside our Junior Ranger project, so that when we leave a school behind that we have given the modules for the program, that there's still something existing within the schools that the subsequent students can learn from as well. We nurture skills and a love for nature. There's so many models of conservation education that don't really nurture that sense of delight and joy of nature and the importance of our environment, because it's all textbook. We do try as much as possible to give students an opportunity to meet with the rangers, go out into the National Reserve and other conservancies to build that bond with nature. And then we are also providing schools with sustainable equipment, I would say. For example, energy saving stoves. A lot of firewood is burnt in these very inefficient stoves. So we try as much as possible when there's funding to give energy saving stoves. We have put in an enormous number of water harvesting systems within many of the schools who generally rely on just pumping from rivers or just don't have any decent clean water at all. So we encourage a model where they are able to capture rainwater from their roofs. Next slide. Excuse me. And then we have a community health program, which has very many different levels to it, which we won't go into in detail here, but we work with communities on outreaches, providing basic curative services, providing family planning, providing HIV testing, counselling, and also providing cancer screening. And we do that in two ways. We do the outreaches where we'll use maybe a church or a school, and we'll advertise to people who have very little access to these facilities and these services. And then we also work with the community health volunteers who go door to door when we're not able to do the outreaches. Put me on mute a second, I need. Next slide, please. That brings us to Enock's part of the presentation when he's going to talk about our field teams.
Thank you so much, Susie. I'll drive you into our ranger teams, and as Mount Kenya Trust, to do all this, we cannot do it without having our men and women on the ground, and also in collaboration with other stakeholders for Mount Kenya. And our main stakeholders are KWS and KFS and the Community Forest Association Scouts. So as Mount Kenya Trust, we have we've mandated our rangers to look into three major preventing degradation, which is in forest monitoring, threat intervention, and sensitization. So we have a total of 42 rangers, and we've divided into 6 teams, which some are working on the fence, some are dedicated in day-to-day patrols, and then we got a few of our rangers dedicated into tree monitoring, helping out in follow-ups after planting of trees in these degraded areas. So we've stationed all these ranger teams into strategic areas of the landscape to monitor forest biodiversity, and they do this through joint patrols And we've realized that in one day, depending on the operation demands, they can do up to 30 kilometers in a day. So they do roughly about 10 to 30 kilometers in a day. Under threat interventions, of course, like I said, we work with community scouts, we work with Kenya Wildlife Service, work with Kenya Forest Service Rangers to respond to ecosystem threats, including poaching, logging, wildfires, and conduct wildlife rescues. And under sensitization, where also we've mandated our men and women on the ground to help in engage with communities, offer conservation education to people of all ages, like Susie has mentioned, including children, and in various topics, which include human-wildlife conflict, coexistence, and forest restoration. We also look into wildlife protection and anti-poaching, fire prevention and response, waste management, and water resource protection. Next slide. So how do we do this? We do this in collaboration as the core and also application of technologies. And under here, under this, we look into wildlife. And under wildlife, we've mandated our men on the ground to look into wildlife monitoring, do anti-poaching interventions, try to curb on bushmeat and hunting, and also help in rescues, wildlife rescues. And we also work with what we call Water Resource User Authority. This is another community-led association where we work in riparian patrols. We assist them in riparian restoration through planting trees along the riparians, cleanups and waste removal, education, including human-wildlife conflict education, monitor forest health, and also in use of technology. And under human-wildlife conflict, we also, our dedicated men are mandated to look into corridor management. Like I mentioned, we have 24/7 men mandated to look into the corridor, our elephant corridor. We have a team, our patrol team are mandated also to help in monitoring and respond to any human-wildlife conflict, of course, in collaboration with the KWS and also in education. And under forest, they are mandated to look into forest monitoring, forest health, anti-logging interventions, help in fighting wildlife wildfires, and assist also in active restoration. Next slide. So as Mount Kenya Trust, one of the threats that we found that is really disturbing is wildfires. And we have actually mapped out when these wildfires are happening. And we have also looked at what is really essential to do in fighting fires. So as Mount Kenya Trust, we worked in training 60 rangers, including the KWS rangers, KFS rangers, Rhino Arc rangers, and even a few people from the community and the farms, that is Kisima Farm, and our rangers, mainly our rangers. Up to 30 of our rangers were trained in firefighting. And from there, we identified 3 of these rangers to act as TOTs, and they have actually come up with a tailored training, which now they have trained up to 6 teams of the community and as Mount Kenya Trust, we've equipped them with PPEs to tackle fires. And now this community are actually the ones who are first responders whenever the fire is, we've been alerted there's fires, and then we bring in our rangers to help out. And then any other resource that is needed come in later after all the community have responded. And then these images just show you us equipping the community scouts with the PPEs, firefighting equipments, like a fire beater, rake hoe, you can see from the images. And this was after a thorough training that was done through the MKT TOTs. Next slide. And of course, we cannot do all this without technology. We've also brought in technology into our day-to-day routine patrols, where we use spatial monitoring and reporting tool, SMART, to record and store our data, patrol data. We've also used Earth Ranger, and you can see an image here on your left. That is an image of me actually demonstrating how Earth Ranger works. And here I was just looking at one of the collared elephant that was in one of the section, the Imenti area where Susie was talking about. Actually, the elephant is called Kandembene, is in that area, just looking at him through the Earth Ranger. And we've also brought in InReach GPSs, where this is a way of us tracking where our rangers are, because one thing is that within the mountain, there's no actual connection. So what happens is if the rangers are out, the only way we can get them is through tracking them and using the InReach. We've also utilizing the farms technology, where this is where we are monitoring wildfires, and this alerts us in fires whenever they happen, and we send in a team. And of course, like I've told you now, the first team will send in the trained community scouts. We've also deployed camera traps along the corridor, and with that camera traps, we've also deployed a technology called Wildlife Protection Solution, where this now actually sends in real-time data on use of corridor images through a phone. And of course, we are also deployed the collar data like the one showing you there. This isn't really our work in terms of report writing, producing analysis, like what you can see on the left, lower left. And then on the right, this is just a map showing where the team was. Actually, this is the whole patrol that was conducted by Mount Kenya Trust Rangers in 2024. So you can see we are not only covering Mount Kenya, but we're also working in this other, if you can see the areas that are away from the mountain, these are areas that are actually special areas that we get a special call from KWS or KFS to help send a team to reinforce their team that are in those areas. One thing that happens is that you find that they are really under-resourced. So when we send in a team, we send in a team that is fully resourced, including camping in those areas, a vehicle that can help them do some coverage or mileage in those particular areas. Next slide. So here, we just, this is a corridor, and we wanted to show you one of our major projects that we're having in preventing the human-wildlife conflict. So this map shows you our elephant corridor that is connecting the northern area of Mount Kenya to actual Mount Kenya. So this corridor is a 14-kilometer long, and it connects the northern area, like I've said, to Mount Kenya landscape. And this preventing of human-elephant conflict is a vital part of our work to ensure that communities are safe and are involved in conservation solution. So in this map, if you can see, is this was actually, this property were given to us through local farms, that is Kisima Farm and Marania Farm. And after a research that was done in tracking the elephants in this area, that the elephants were actually using this part as the corridor. And it has helped us in reducing the human-elephant conflict in these particular areas, as these are commercial farms and even the people that are living around it. And in this corridor, this where now we actually have the elephant underpass. So the elephant underpass really helps elephant to cross the road. And if you can just look at that network, there's quite a lot of road network there, that if are left without the underpasses, then there will be a lot of rundown of elephants when they're crossing from northern area, that is the Ngarindare, Lewa into Mount Kenya. And that's where now we have the underpasses going through. And if you look at that image there, the intervention we had, the latest intervention that we had here was introducing the one-way gate where elephants can use it to get into the Imenti Forest Station. If you look at the Imenti Forest Station, you'll see where we have the elephant one-way gates. So that then there we identify that area as well as the corridor where the elephants were coming from the Shaba National Reserve from the north into the Imenti part. But because of the fence, you can see that area is fenced. That is high tensile fence that the elephants cannot cross. So then now we installed this gate that it opens up when an elephant approaches it, then enters into the the Imenti Forest area. And then from there, it comes back into the, you see Meru Forest Station, through that forest in Sefa, into Muchiene, and then get their way back through the elephant corridor. That is generally the model that we've created in that area, and it's working really successfully. If you look from that image, you can see the gate has opened and the elephants are actually getting into the Imenti forest section. Next slide. And of course, this elephant corridor was established in 2009 by Mount Kenya Trust and partners, including the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, the Kisima Farm, like I mentioned, as well as the Marania Farm, and of course, it's being maintained by us. And what we've observed in this use of this corridor is there's quite a lot of, as we call it, elephant corridor, but we've also established that quite a number of wildlife, up to 19 key species are using it, including the zebras, including the leopards, and of course the lions. If you can see there are 2 lions actually going now. The lions are facing going into the corridor, and you can see this is during the daytime. So this tells you how vital this area is. And if this corridor was not here, I bet these lions would have gone into the community. And because the corridor is fenced, they cannot break into the community. They will go all the way connecting into Mount Kenya. Those 2 lions, this was actually on 3rd of July. They were going into the mountain. We have not seen them coming back yet. Because we have these images, we haven't seen them coming back yet. So they are still on the mountain. Hopefully they'll come back soon. And of course, that's an elephant getting into the corridor from the Mount Kenya, getting into the corridor, which will find his way all the way back into the northern area through Ngarendare and Lewa. Next slide. This is yours now. And of course, this is just an image showing how the elephants are using the corridor. This is really one of our favorite images, showing the use of corridor. Probably, Susie, do you want to mention something about this? I know how you love this image.
I love this image, yeah. In fact, the image was caught on a drone and would not have been caught if a vehicle didn't break down. That we had some camera people in the area trying to get some great shots in the corridor. They weren't finding any elephants, and the vehicle broke down, and they thought they would just launch their drone up, and lo and behold, they happened to be near the underpass that crosses beneath the A2 major highway from Nanyuki to Meru. And we happened to get this image captured on the drone of them heading through to the underpass. I think it's hard for people to understand the scale of this project and what it means to in terms of protection to both elephants, other wildlife, and protection of people. And there were so many naysayers when we started out on this project, and we are now having over 2,000 elephant journeys every year. I must stress that a lot of this has been done in partnership, as Enock mentioned, and a lot of the technology is shared technology that we're working very closely with other people. But this is an image that makes us very happy. So 2,000 elephant journeys is actually 2,000 journeys all the way through from one end of the corridor to the other. So there's a lot more elephant recorded in those areas. And those 2,000 per annum, a lot of which I like to call repeat clients. But it's just incredible to think that we had lots of bulls breaking into people's farms, trashing people's crops, affecting their livelihoods, even the big farms having major problems. But it's because we, the humans, have, blocked off these areas, and this is opening up, has opened up, and continues to open up the historical migration routes that are so important. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just to begin to wrap up, we very key for us is to try and work with the rangers in terms of community sensitization, the rangers and the fencers. So they will also be part of the education projects that and healthcare projects that we set up, because knowledge inspires action. And we try and insist that all of our team is involved at every level, and woven into our projects is not just, we need to do this, we need to survey, we need to do surveillance, we need to teach people about the environment and its importance. We need to weave in the importance of healthy families. We need to weave in the importance of what it means to be a ranger, what it means to be out there day in and day out, and how everything is linked. And when people have more knowledge, we have more understanding about how to live in harmony. Next slide, please. So we are about to take a part in the Wildlife Ranger Challenge, something that has been running since COVID to help organizations with rangers when funding has become more and more difficult. And as a call to action, if you'd like to help us, whether you've helped before or never helped before, this is a way that you can help in a small way, in a big way, because the funds are matched. And we will share on the chat a link. But if you are savvy, you can also use the image there on your camera to go straight to the link that is specifically for support of our rangers in the field. They really do work incredibly hard to protect the last of our safe spaces, the last of our habitats, and our keystone species like the elephants. So if you would like to help, that's one way you can help at the moment. It's just been opened, and how it works is that rangers from all these different organizations will take part in challenges, and they train for it, and they will do sit-up challenges, they'll do quiz, they will do press-up challenges, and then it all culminates in a big 22K run with 23 kg 21 kg on their 21 kilometers, 22 kg on their back. It's an incredible, we shouldn't have to talk about or ask people to do these additional hard things, but that's just how the world works. And we would love to have a call to action while we have the opportunity to speak to you now. So please help us out if you can. Every little counts. Thank you. Next slide. Oh, yes. And thank you again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm also in awe of that beautiful drone photo. I'm sitting here wondering if everyone saw every elephant there tucked into all the trees and stuff, because it's a little bit like an elephant Where's Waldo, but absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for sharing so much of your work with us. And we have people already excited in the chat, so we might as well start with Q&A right away. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Horse Patrol team? Because I know that's something that IEF has supported for many years, and I think people love those stunning images. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that was something, that team we set up when we had another two vehicled and walking patrol teams already, but I came up with the idea, and I got some friends excited about using Ethiopian ponies, because they are very much East African highland species that comes from obviously Ethiopia, and they are very hardy, and despite their diminutive size, very, very strong. And we decided to train some new recruits from the local community to ride the ponies well, actually we had to break them in to begin with. We had to truck them from Ethiopia, the original ones, break in the ponies and train the new recruits. And it wasn't that straightforward straight away, but it's been a really winning combination. It's not a team that rides on patrols all the time, but it's an excellent way to get an overview or a quick, if there's been a community member, for example, that we have informers within the community if there's something going on. If we get some heads up, it's an excellent way of going to check out that area straight away. It's an excellent way to go, and if we've heard that an animal needs rescuing, it's an excellent way to get an overview of maybe a fire situation, but also to go and talk to communities who are in the forest restoration. It's a different view. Both have advantages, but it's a different way of patrolling on the mountain. And yeah, that team does an incredible job, and those ponies are just made for the environment, and actually very compared to if we had sort of a mixed breed or European breeds, they would be very high maintenance, whereas the Ethiopian ponies, they don't need shoeing, they don't need much additional feed. They're tough, and the guys and the horses have an amazing mutual respect and relationship.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
And
just to add on the same, I think in terms of patrol, this has really been a game changer for us in terms of mileage coverage, area coverage as well. And I talked of 30 kilometers. With it, that team does even more than that in a day if they do it on a patrol. So the inclusion of a horse patrol into our daily patrols is really a game changer for us.
that's great. And so where do you find the rangers or patrolmen who have those horse skills, or is that something you teach?
We were able to utilize some of the people in the area who have horses, some parts of the Timau community, and they were very keen to help us to train the initial team. And since then, we are essentially they're trained in-house by the other rangers who've been riding for many years. They are not in need of doing any, show horsing or dressage. So in terms of basic riding skills, and then there's some people who will come along and help us with training from time to time. But now it's done in-house because we have riders within the team that have been working with the ponies, who know each individual pony, for example, and won't put a novice on one compared to another, for example. That they learn on the job, essentially.
And I also just want to add on the same. I think sustainability is something very key, especially for conservation. And using our rangers to actually be TOTs, the training of trainers, has been really helpful. And you see, whenever we have a changeover of rangers, we retain a few that were trained initially to actually train those who are coming in new. And if you walk into our stables, you might think that everybody is a professional rider of ponies, but no, they've just trained indoors. So that's how we keep on training. And most of our rangers now have gone through the horse patrol, and most of them can keep a horse.
That's wonderful. So are the Rangers excited to become Horse Patrol members? Like, is there a waiting list?
Yes, I'll say yes, there's a waiting list for Rangers to come to be in that team all the time.
Love it. Great. Uh, so people are asking about the energy saving stoves. Can you describe what they are, what they look like, and a little bit more about them?
Yeah, so energy saving stoves are, they could still get very, very basic models that are not, you know, very expensive or use very much technology. We do, obviously, we're kind of getting the ones that are made locally, and ones that can do sort of industrial scale, sort of school type feeding is cooking a lot of meals. So I think if you go into a school that hasn't had the luck of getting energy saving stoves, it's really just about how the oxygen is fed into the stove, ensuring that they're more efficient than more traditional open stoves. So that you use, I think it's generally speaking, it's about a third of the firewood or charcoal that you would traditionally use in those stoves. And we can certainly share pictures with anyone who's interested. A large energy saving stove from memory is costing about $1,800, and saving a school in terms of sustainability an enormous amount of time with firewood collection or with buying firewood. But then obviously in terms of health and pollutants, they are much better as well.
But generally how they work is like an oven. It's like a traditional oven where there's no much heat loss as compared to an open fire. So most of the heat are within, and that's why now it's called energy saving, because most of the heat will be retained heating the cooking pot.
That's excellent. Yeah, fuel efficient is very important. So you mentioned schools, and we have people asking about school programs. So maybe tell us a little bit what the schools are like in that region. And then there's a specific question in the chat. When you're educating schools, are you able to share info on the Mount Kenya Glacier and how deforestation and other factors are having a drastic effect on reducing the glacier and reducing the water source?
Yeah, so I think we'll probably both have something to say as usual. So yes, in terms of our junior ranger program, when we go into schools, many years ago we would go in with films that were made by other people, so maybe a very broad education message, and have discussions around that. Luckily, there was an organization I actually worked for before who had a film called Running Dry, which talks a lot about the mountain. But there's many models of environmental education, and there's many that are suitable for a good stretch of African areas. But mountains are very specific, and their threats are very specific. And as we've seen through the presentation, they're not just about biodiversity and species, they're about people, they're about water. So our Junior Ranger program was developed in-house, and it means that it has been tailored very, very specifically to children and pupils who are living in this particular region and environment. And the modules speak very much to that. And a lot of the modules are very interactive. I won't go into the glacier issue too much. I know that publicly it's very worrying. In terms of what we do at a regional level, we can speak to the fact that we have riparian projects and try to do as much as we can when funding is available to protect the water source. Glaciers are melting. From all the science that I've read, in tropical areas, glaciers are melting because of a a reduction in atmospheric moisture, which comes much more from a global scale heating up of the environments everywhere. And sadly, Africa is suffering hugely and very, very, very minutely part of the problem. And that's so it's a poignant factor, and ever more important to protect the forest and talk about these things, because those are the things, if we don't protect these mountains and water sources, when it's very obvious that climate change is happening and that glaciers are melting, it's more important than ever, I should say, to protect our forests and our forest dwelling species and work with communities, because it's only going to get harder, and fires are only going to get more prevalent as climate change becomes more and more impactful.
Absolutely. I think it's important that everyone remembers protecting those habitats and wild places helps us as humans and as a world, not just the wildlife. So it's about everyone together, not just wildlife, although of course we love wildlife. More questions. You mentioned drones, but are you considering deploying drones to reduce human-elephant conflict or monitor elephants? This person asking the question is a chair of an organization that's considering using them and would welcome any suggestions or feedback.
Would you like to address that?
Yeah, I think in terms of drones, yes, we have a limited reach in terms of drones. So for like the image we showed, this was one of our friends that we've consulted to do that for us. But as Mount Kenya Trust, we really don't deploy drones into reducing human-elephant conflict. But one thing like we do is through tracking of individual elephants. So once we've identified there's a really troubled elephant, we work with KWS to actually put a track on them, like the one I was showing you there before. And now let's start monitoring how their movement is. If we see probably when with that technology, we can deploy some georeference. So if we see it's approaching certain areas, then that sends automatic messages into our phones, and then we deploy a team depending on where they are or where that particular area is. Exactly. Susie, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just very briefly, I think, yeah, we're very open to the use of them. They're using more and more in the Mara. There's a lot of fencing project going on around Mount Kenya that does help a lot with the human-wildlife conflict, but in a closed canopy forest area, it has limitations, and also in terms of the vast landscape that we're looking at, and not a savanna landscape, is also one of the reasons. Yeah,
great things to consider. Can you talk more about Earth Ranger, how Earth Ranger helps you do your work? And yeah, because we've had other speakers mention it, so it's something that I think it's worth re-educating everyone on. It's such a powerful program.
Yeah, I think I can take that. So Earth Ranger, it is a very powerful tool and technology to apply, especially in patrols. One thing, like I've mentioned even during my presentation, you could tell where the infrastructure is. And for this case, I just showed you an elephant in a certain area. But you can deploy it in various things, including tracking your rangers, tracking where the illegal activities are, tracking your infrastructures, tracking even your waters and levels and some things like that. So it is one technology that it's very vast in terms of use, and you can customize it in using it everywhere and everything. But one thing that I would like to say is that it gives you a real-time information whenever you deploy it. When a ranger is out or plugs in an information, if it's a critical information, it rings, it beeps on your phone, and you just like that, you can tell where that information is, where that thing is, and what intervention is needed needed for it. So Earth Ranger is a very powerful tool.
That's excellent. That's so great. Maybe you can tell us, people are asking about poaching in the area. So how many elephants are in the Mount Kenya ecosystem, and what's the poaching situation like?
Okay, so very good question. So the last time there was a survey that we were very much involved with another organization and the local partners and stakeholders, the estimate of elephants was 2,500 elephants in the mountain area. Obviously, that means that it's a very densely populated area. If you remember the figure I gave you, 2,700 square kilometers. And given that a lot of the very high altitude areas are not habitable by elephants, we're squeezing in elephants in less than half a square kilometer each, if you think about that. And those surveys, because again with the closed canopy forest, those surveys are not like a lot of wildlife censuses are done from the air with game counts. They're a lot more difficult. It means you have to do surveys on dung decay and actually do physical transects on the mountain using manpower. Very, very difficult to do. But what was great about that, the results of that survey, is that compared to a 99 survey, the difference in population was not much less, meaning that it's a very stable population, and it proves that it's it's also a very dense population of elephants. The same with the Aberdares. Obviously, seasonally it will change because you have movement to the lowland during the wetter seasons and vice versa. But it's pretty strong. And in terms of elephant poaching, between 2009 and 2014, all across the country, well, I would say all across Africa, we had a sudden surge of elephant poaching that was, it was nasty to watch. It was about the price of ivory. It was about cartels. It was about a lack of judiciary accountability. It was about poor fines. It was about poor prosecutional education. But slowly over time, working with lots of organizations, working with the market, i.e. China and others, and working with the judiciary on the ground, that changed. I'm happy to say that it was not as bad in the Mount Kenya area as it was many of the savannah areas. However, it was harrowing to see elephants we actually knew, collared elephants that we were familiar with, for example, suddenly standing still and being poached and being found. And luckily that is no longer the case, not especially with the sort of the cartel level. We do, thankfully, and we'll touch lots of wood here, a lot of the carcasses we find now still have their tusks intact, which means it's either predatory or old age or some kind of health issue. Unfortunately, bushmeat hunting is still very prevalent, and it's indiscriminate, which means that large cable snares can capture wildlife as big as elephants, and that's whereas people might say, you know, in terms of some small antelope that are populous, that it is fairly sustainable. It's indiscriminacy that makes it a very difficult one to sort of get your head around.
Yeah, I also wanted just to add in terms of that survey that was done, that it is really a difficult survey to conduct, but it has a huge advantage in terms of every corner of the conservation area is actually walked. These men walked every corner in terms of those transects. They passed all over the conservation area. So at least that one time we are accountable for every corner of the conservation area, probably until the next survey again. But I mean, we still, the men are still really on the ground.
Wow, that's quite an undertaking. So getting another question about specifically Earth Ranger again, because we know it's used all over Africa. Does it connect? Is your Earth Ranger system connecting to other parts of Kenya? Because we know elephants range so far, or is it? Yeah.
Okay, I think
Yeah, go.
yeah, I think I'll answer to that. So when you are an organization that it's set up for, you will generally only be able to see for the area that you are responsible for, and especially when it comes to elephant data, it's something you want to be very careful about. And you know, I think you know, in the past, that was very secrecy. You had to sign documents if you were sharing data with other organizations on an area, because you never know who else is seeing that information. Earth Ranger is not picking up, can't pick up elephants unless they're collared. But still, if I was privy to more than this area and people didn't know me, you know, it does bring up questions of, you know, the trustworthiness and how many people have I sent that password. It's as easy as a password. And the other thing I think I wanted to add to about Earth Ranger is one of the beauties of it is how it's continues to be more and more integrated with other technologies. So as Enock was saying, if you open up your Earth Ranger and you've put smart data on it, and you slide the timescale, you can see everything that the patrol teams have recorded as you slide that open for a, you know, a period of time that you choose. But if you just want the day-to-day information, you can open it up. We can see our cars, we can see our teams. I can see if Enock's still at home. I can see where the last fire report was broken out, because it's also integrated with something called FIRMS, which is NASA technology. We will get those pings anyway, but you know, say I hadn't seen that SMS from that technology, if I opened up Earth Ranger, I would see that. So yeah, it's a massively powerful tool, but it generally is, you know, the organization has their specific area they're working with, and then if you have overlaps with people in similar areas like we do with Save the Elephants and with Lewa, then there is some information we're sharing across the board there.
Excellent.
And of course, all this information, we have to share them with KWS. And like Susie has said, it's very integratable. You can integrate it with SMART. You can integrate it between Earth Ranger and Earth Ranger, between conservation area and conservation area. So it's really an open tool that can be used. But data sharing, you have to be very careful who is really accessing your data. So those are some of the limitations we have in terms of who is accessing or what I am having. But I mean, if you have these MOUs, you have this understanding among the organizations, like we have an understanding between Mount Kenya Trust and Save the Elephants, we share those data and yeah.
Very smart. Got to be careful with who you share the information with. So that's wonderful. We are coming up on the hour. So one last question and then we'll wrap up. I know funding across the world is difficult right now. So maybe you guys can tell us a little bit, you know, going forward, what are your greatest needs?
What, sorry, could you repeat the last part?
Yeah, what are your greatest needs going forward as an organization to further your mission?
Our greatest needs at the moment, we seem to be healthy support for our community health projects. Interestingly, we need support for our rangers. We need support for the elephant corridor, and particularly that map of that elephant corridor area. Those are the teams that we need to support the most at the moment. Yeah, we welcome ranger support at this time.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
I think I also wanted to add just something on, especially on Wildlife Ranger Challenge. This is a very active initiative that is being done across, and our rangers are participating on it for the 5th year since in its first time in 2020. And it is a way of actually just contributing to the ranger work. And whatever you contribute, it's being doubled. I mean, it's being matched. So it is a very healthy way of participating in helping out rangers out there.
Yes, the Wildlife Ranger Challenge is something that we support and love, and we will share that link out in the replay and to everyone who gets a link for the replay so that everyone can follow along and hopefully support. But thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for sharing this. I know everyone in the chat loves what you did and loves what you're sharing, so that's really wonderful. You're getting all kinds of accolades. As we wrap up, I wanted to point out to everyone that our next conservation chat is August 19th with some guests from the Elephant Tag team. So we'll talk about that more in a little bit. And then the one after that is September 25th with Josh Schiffman and Lisa Beglin. They're going to be pretty exciting talks, which you'll learn more about later. But let me turn it back over to Debbie real quick.
Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. We welcome everybody who viewed and everybody who's on the Zoom. If you want to unmute yourself and turn on your cameras and show your appreciation for Susie and Enock, please do so now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the time.